Welcome back to Coaching with Impact, the go-to podcast for female coaches ready to elevate their coaching business and make a lasting impact. I am your host, Fifa Tran, and I own Faye Modern Creative, helping diverse female coaches shine with confidence through an elevated online presence using web design and holistic brand strategy. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I have a very awesome guest, and she's going to be talking about really fun topics. So I have Chelsie here, who's going to be the one special guest we're going to be interviewing today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Fifa.
I am really, really happy to have you on this podcast. I know we recently have been connecting and I've been seeing all the stuff that you've been putting out there. I'm really, really happy that I have you to talk about like the whole topic of like passive income, because I know that's like such a huge buzzword, especially nowadays, especially as well in the coaching industry. So we're going to be talking a lot about passive income and like all that stuff, online services, like, all around the idea of building this income stream that you don't have to put so much of your time or whatever in your energy into always keeping up with. But I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions because this is really your realm. But before we dive deep into all of these questions that I have lined up for you, please share a little bit more about your journey in starting this whole thing and like what led you down this path.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Fifa. I'll start from the beginning. So as I've mentioned to you in the past, I started this whole journey about 9 years ago, I'm going to say, 8.5, almost 9 years ago. And I started out as a freelance copywriter before I was a coach, before anything. And I was actually copywriting in the cannabis industry. So completely different than what I do now. So I started out as a copywriter, and then a year after that is when I did scale to my full digital marketing agency, started offering a variety of different services. Still not a coach yet at this point, but doing copywriting, social media, ads, and hiring out people to do the work for me, because at that point I was very interested in kind of passive income and separating myself from the business. So that is why I scaled to an agency. And then fast forward to today, I still have the agency, but it is fully automated and on the side, which is why it frees up my time to coach. And I have been coaching for about 5 years now. And I would say I have 3 main programs, but the first program I ever launched is specifically for people who are freelancing in the marketing space and wanting to scale to agencies of their own because they're interested in passive income as well, exactly how I did. And then I have a second program where I help people who are online coaches or people who have the dream of having like a course or making income more passively, but really actually want to create that course and actually make income passively from it, not just have something where they're selling it and constantly needing to give it to people one to one. So yeah, anyways, that is where I am right now.
I love that. And it's cool because like I got you in specifically as like a subject matter expert, but you also have the experience of being a coach as well. So I love that I have some like, especially when I have like guests that have a little bit of both, it's nice to draw out the expertise of like of what you teach, but also your experience being a coach yourself. So I know we did mention a little bit about passive income, but for those who don't know what it is, can you please, like in your own words, just kind of like tell us what your definition of passive income is and like what types of like passive income streams do you specifically focus on?
Okay, totally. So I think when we're speaking about passive income in a conversation like this, what we are talking about is income that is generated through, not us not having to do work for that income to be generated. And I think sometimes that the term passive income is thrown around quite a bit in the field these days. And
Yeah.
sometimes we're not talking about pure passive income, which is income that is generated without doing work. What we are speaking about right now is really minimizing the amount of work you have to do to and increasing your income, right? So usually that looks like creating a course, for example, that is evergreen, something you filmed and you can repeatedly sell. Obviously, it took work to film that course, but once it's created, you can generate an infinite amount of money with that certain amount of hours that you put into that course. So to me, that's kind of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I love that definition that you that you gave us. That it is definitely a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot. And then when people get into it and they're like, okay, I'm building this passive income stream, but then they realize how much work it actually takes to upkeep it, like in the sense where they need to constantly be promoting it and they need to constantly be putting it out there for people to be able to buy from them, then it becomes something that might overwhelm them, or they're going to be like, oh, this is not truly passive income.
Totally.
So thank you for clarifying that, because
Yeah.
that's really important.
Yeah. And I think in an industry like coaching or coaching or courses, there has to be some level of passion there, right? If the drive behind what you're doing as a coach is purely for passive income, then I don't think it's the industry for
Mhm.
you, right? Like if that is like the only reason, because there are other ways to make money uh, quicker and more passively. But if coaching is like a passion, then there's definitely ways to impact more people through making it more passive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So I know like you kind of mention a little bit of like, let's say like one type of passive income, like courses, for example. But what are some like very simple passive income ideas that like coaches listening today can quickly implement for themselves in their business who really want to get started with building a passive income?
Yeah, totally. So would this be like for people who already have some sales in their course and already have a course and just want to make it more passive?
um, I guess like um maybe let's say anybody who has been coaching for some time but they don't have anything that's like considered passive, like how do they get into that space?
Totally. Yeah. First thing I would say is start generating something that can be sold uh, like repetitively. So if you don't have a course that's already pre-filmed, even just filming your coaching sessions or creating pieces of content that could be sold for a small amount to new clients as they come in. That's the first step because the information that's in your brain is what is of value. That is why people are paying you. But if it only lives in your brain, then you are needed to make the business thrive. So really getting that information out on a piece of paper or filmed so that a, a business separate from you is created. And then second to that, I would say starting to outsource, right? Whether that is to people or a lot of people have hesitations around outsourcing to people immediately, but uh, outsourcing to automation, looking into where you spend your time and how can AI help you to kind of save some time and separate you a little bit more from the business. So that's a good place to start.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of specifically when you mention to take what like record their past sessions and to put that like have that as something they can put out there and sell. Like that's probably the easiest, quickest way right now to create something that's passive, right?
100%. I totally agree. And
Yeah.
always starting with the framework too, right? Sometimes it's so overwhelming. You're like, I have all this knowledge in my head, but how do I even begin to get it out? But just yeah, starting with the basics and just flushing it out over time, over a week's time, and yeah.
Okay. And I guess like if they want to dive into like online coaches like courses I meant and just like taking what they've already recorded and like putting it into a course. I know like some people, maybe they have all of these videos lined up already, but they get overwhelmed with the tech. They don't know how they're supposed to put it out there so that they can sell it as a package, like a packaged course. What is your take on that?
Totally. So, it's funny that you're asking me these questions because I mean, I have a full like 10-week course on this. This is
Oh,
so much
wow.
broader of a question than just like a 2-minute answer. But to give you like a 2-minute answer of the question, um, the tech is overwhelming, right? Things like this are overwhelming. So yeah, I have to acknowledge that. But I definitely think that starting with who you're talking to and who you're helping, and starting with them in mind before you start creating anything or putting anything into a framework or uploading anything online will really help. So maybe some people would be familiar with like the formal education system and how when you go to school, usually formally, you will start with an outline. They will give you an outline and you will know even before you choose a course in college or university, let's say, the course objectives. And maybe they'll provide 3 to 5 objectives that you would learn by the end of the course. So starting with that, after analyzing, the pain points and interviewing some people who you'd actually potentially work with, creating an objectives list and then creating a framework from that, and then thinking about the tech right when you're about to upload, because that part, it'll take you a day or two, but after it's done, it's done. There's more anxiety with the tech in terms of thinking about it than actually doing it, I would say.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. I love that you just like put it in so that it's a more simpler in more simpler terms. But I love that you did mention about the outline because like that's where people often miss that step, or like they get overwhelmed because they're like, okay, where do I even begin? But this is really the first step, is you still have to plan out how you're going to build the course and
Mhm,
make it relevant to the people you're trying to serve, right?
mhm, totally.
And like, there's so many courses out there now, and like I'm such a, like, I invest a lot in coaches, I invest a lot in courses. And like at one point I was like kind of like I was just investing in so many courses that I couldn't follow through with them. It was like it was some of them were great, some of them weren't. Some of them were just not motivating me to continue taking the course. I would love to hear from you what your idea of a good course is, because there's so many out there. How do you actually, like, what is your definition of a good course?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. um I'm not sure if I have one definition of what a good course is, to be honest. Maybe I can share some of my experience with courses before I created one.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
so so when I was a freelancer and then scaled to an agency, obviously that was transformative because it was income more passively to me. But I noticed a need in the industry. I noticed, okay, there's a lot of courses on how to make your first couple $1,000s, or how to get your first client, how to set up a business corporation, like these pieces. But there was nothing overarching showing you how to go from a freelancer to how to get the lifestyle freedom that you potentially would want from an agency. So I noticed there was a need, not just from my feeling, but after being in the industry and like looking at that and talking to other people in the industry, I noticed there was a need. So I think for a course to be considered good, it actually has to fill a need that is there. And these days, especially within the coaching space, within the marketing space, it is becoming a little bit more saturated. So it is less likely that you would have a course or be speaking on something, in my opinion, that is very unique. So of course, having something that's unique, but I don't even think it necessarily needs to be unique, but it needs to be able to help people uniquely, if that makes sense. So whether that is from your personality or from the way that you are able to convey the message, some people will resonate with you more than they resonate with let's say, a man who focuses primarily on, financials and things like that, rather than someone who's maybe more intuitive. Like in my coaching, I really like to think about it as, in the whole picture, like more holistically. So I don't think there is any like good or bad course, but knowing like who you are and or who your business is, and being able to stick with that and finding people who resonate with that. Yeah.
Mm. That's a good answer, honestly. It because it really does all come down to that. At the end of the day, it's like you are trying to serve a specific audience with specific needs, and if you can figure out something that you can package into a course that helps to solve that specific problem, and the more specific it is, the better, because then like if they see your course, they have an answer to something, or like a very, I mean, they have like a very like big pain point that they need the answer to find an answer to, and then your course is there and it speaks directly to them, then that is something that you can immediately sell and immediately get attention for, or like have a course that satisfies your audience, right? So I know like your background as well as a copywriter is probably going to help a lot with that too, like in being able to package your course and sell it in a way that makes sense for people, and to pinpoint the specific problem that they're having. So that's why like there's I know there's like so many different courses out there, but that's really how you differentiate yourself. And also there's like a really key point that you mentioned as well, is the fact that you have your own personality. You have your own take on certain things and the way that you teach, right? So that in itself is already like a main superpower that you have, that you could potentially just like be able to share with your audience of why they need to be working with you, or why they need to listen to you when you are trying to teach something, right? So I love that. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. Um, one other thing as well that I wanted to like just bring into the whole topic of courses is the fact that like I know I've taken so many different courses, and I wanted to hear your take on this, because there are some, because we mentioned earlier, like, okay, it's cool to record yourself. It's cool to have these videos readily available to put into a course. But sometimes the videos are too long, or sometimes, like depending on what you're talking about, it could be like something that won't be very easy for your audience to digest. And I've had this experience myself where I've had I've enrolled in a course that was like so drawn out and so like poorly organized that it didn't motivate me to continue wanting to take this course, or like wanting to go through all the lessons, right? Because each video is like an hour and a half to 2 hours long even. So
Mhm.
like, what's your take on this? Because I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. Okay, super interesting topic in my opinion. I think your experience is not unique. I think a lot of people have that experience. And I think that primarily happens when we don't take the client, student, consumer, their opinion and their experience first, you know?
Mm.
So in my opinion, like I do talk about this in my course and things like that, but I think it's very important to, if you're creating evergreen courses. So what I mean by evergreen courses are courses that you film once and you can sell repeatedly, right? When creating something like that, we don't create it and then sell it. In my opinion, the best courses are created through making a really clear framework that encompasses what you want to share, but is then sold based on the framework. And then the details are created and drawn out after you've actually pre-sold it, because then you know you have something of value and you can put hours and months of your time into creating it out, and you don't feel like you're wasting your time, and you can put so much value into it because you're already paid to do it. So I think like that is a big mistake a lot of people make, is creating a platform for this hypothetical person after they interviewed maybe a couple people, but that is not enough. You know, really knowing who your target person is and then selling to them and then creating a course. In my opinion, like when I create my courses, I will sell it, and then every single week I will create the video content and I will film myself and I will give it to my cohort of students, and when they have questions, if 8 out of 10 of my students have questions and it's the same question, I know I did something wrong and I need to tweak it, right? Because they're telling me, okay, like that was not understandable. And listening to them and fixing it. And then that's how you come up with the best course at the end of it, because they've given you like the exact steps you need to do to make your course better. So yeah, yeah, that's my response to that. What do you think about that, FIFA? I'm curious as someone who is an avid course goer.
Uh, I honestly, yeah, I agree with you in that aspect. I find that's a very, very important thing to mention, because feedback is everything. Like in order to, that's also comes along, with the question of like what makes a good course is, being able to get that feedback, being able to take what you're learning from your students and making it better, making what you've already created better too, right? So, I love that you said, get that feedback first before actually creating the course, because a lot of people do the opposite. They spend so much time on this course and creating this course that nobody is going to even buy. So,
Mhm.
and I've had like people that I've spoken to, other coaches that have done that, and then they realize like, this is okay. I spent all these hours compiling these videos. Nobody is buying it. Why is that?
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's it's definitely something that I also very, very much agree with you.
Yeah,
Get that feedback first.
totally.
Get people's opinions, sell it first, and then that also gives you a lot of accountability as well in making that course happen too.
Yeah. Yeah, I have something to add as well. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Were you going to
Right.
say? No, all I just wanted to say is I think it's interesting because maybe this is my marketing background, but even as a coach, I have my students come to me and ask me what they think I should do, what they think they should do in a lot of circumstances. And for sure, you know, as a coach, you want to provide them guidance and give them answers. And a lot of the times you can, but I think that there's many times where we, I personally have to recognize that I am not my student's target um, person. And you as a coach, so my student, them as a coach, they are not their target either, because if they were they wouldn't be able to be the coach of that person, right? So just going directly to the source and asking as much as possible, I think is like really key.
Yeah, that's a key point. Yeah, because like sometimes you're asking for feedback from the wrong people, and then you're implementing that feedback, and it's not entirely your audience. So it's like, okay, that's just be mindful of that when collecting feedback. So yeah, great point there. Um, there's also like one last thing like that I just wanted to mention as well. Like I know we did say we mentioned about like how yeah you should record specific like record a video and then like you can put it in a course, but we did mention about putting it as an outline, creating the outline, and then making sure that those videos that you pre-recorded actually align with that outline. So that's just one thing that I wanted to kind of like, um, I guess like re-emphasize so that our viewers who are listening can take that into consideration. But also like I wanted to mention about the experience of taking a bunch of courses is that the ones that I realized that I actually completed were the ones that were very bite-sized. And like the videos were very bite-sized, they're very straightforward to the point, and the videos were like less than 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes even 10 minutes, but it's like very well organized and segmented on a specific topic within the lessons. So I found that that was very helpful in actually getting me to complete the course. And I know like I talk with a lot of people who also buy a lot of courses and they say the same thing. So definitely like when creating a course, make sure not to make it too long drawn out because then you want your students who invested in you to be able to complete it as well.
Totally. I've heard that too, for sure. And I do agree. And I think it's really important, of course, like this whole conversation's been about, think about your audience and put them first. So making sure your course is organized, completely agree with that. Like segmenting it into smaller chunks if you can. Absolutely. I
Mhm.
agree with that. But I do think at some point, like for instance, like if you're selling high ticket courses at a certain price point and to a certain demographic, I I feel as though they would complete it, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Like, some courses maybe are ones in which you do need to watch 1 or 2 hours of video content because of what the learnings are, and this could be, like, let's say, a $20,000 course. And someone who is
mm,
purchasing something at this level would probably not just stop watching the video because it's too long for them. And so I
mm,
think pricing and positioning plays a really big role in that too, because I think it's different if we're talking about a $200 course and a $20,000 course. So taking that into consideration as well when creating a program is important.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, very great point that you mentioned there. Because yeah, people learn differently and it really depends on your demographic. Yeah, that's a really key point to keep in mind. Like who is it that you're targeting? Is it somebody that can, that enjoys more bite size, like more straightforward to the point, or is it something that's like, around the topic that is really, really like you need to get more in depth over it. So yeah, having those longer videos can make sense in that case.
totally.
Okay.
And, being transparent too, I'd say at the beginning, like, let's say it is an expensive program and it is a
Mhm.
program that is teaching you something like really in depth and actually does need a lot of detailed videos saying like, hey, this is a pretty intensive program. It has 2 hours of content per week that you need to watch, and then making sure that the people that are joining the program and that you're attracting are people who resonate with that, because there's nothing inherently wrong with that if that is what is needed. Just not trying to sell to people who won't use that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of great insight here. Having like different perspectives, like different things that we need to consider when it comes to building courses. Now I guess like enough about courses. I know we dove a lot into that, but let's go back to the idea of passive income again. And I know we kind of mentioned this at the beginning, how sometimes passive income is not entirely viewed as passive because you have to constantly promote it in order to make sales and all that stuff. So I know with your marketing background as well, your copywriting experience, like what are some easy to implement and sustainable marketing tips that you can share with the audience to ensure like creating something like this can truly become passive?
Totally. Another great question, Fifa. I mean, first things first, you need to make sure from the beginning that you're creating it in a way and structuring your business in a way that eventually will become passive. So that means that if you're coaching people one to one and every single time you're leaving the information in your brain and then giving it to someone else, that is not creating a business that's sustainable or passive. The passive needs to start from putting that information on a piece of paper or actually filming, as we said, right? Creating that framework and then creating the evergreen content. But once that is done, in order to actually put it out there and make it passive, we need to start implementing some sales tactics and separating ourselves from those sales tactics. So, what I often teach my students is there are two levels to sales, let's call it. The first one is going out and hunting for clients, right? This is not passive. This is going out and knocking on people's doors, for example, virtually or in person, and being like, hey, this is what I have. Do you want to hear more? Right? That is not passive, but cannot be skipped, in my opinion, in order to get to the passive. Because you have to go and you have to knock on people's doors as an individual, as yourself starting a business, to know who is going to like your product and who is not, right? So making sure that you are actually doing the non-passive marketing work by doing outreach and making sure you can actually sell it for a month or a couple months before transitioning to the passive way of doing things. And to transition to more passive marketing, usually what that looks like is doing what marketing works in the hunting phase, but having other people or automations doing it for you. So, for example, like I tell my students that you should do all types of marketing at the start: email marketing, cold outreach, social media, networking, like all of it. But the most important thing to do is track the analytics, track the data that you're collecting, right? You can do all of these things, but the minute you go off of feeling, you are not creating a business that is passive long term. You have to be tracking how many people you're doing outreach, how many people are actually converting to a lead, how many people are converting on a call, and then how many people actually become a student. Once you do this for a few months, then you'll see very clearly like which one is worth putting your time into. And then you just outsource by hiring someone to do that for you. And because you've been tracking the analytics yourself, you should know this is the minimum numbers they should be hitting. And then that's it. Your sales are outsourced. Make it sound easy, but it takes time.
Yeah, I guess it's like also the idea of outsourcing is really what also brings together that whole passive income thing. But yeah, I mean, you said it. You can't ignore the numbers. Don't ignore the numbers, even if you don't like the numbers like me. Still got to look at them. And yeah, it's all about KPIs, getting those analytics down. Painful sometimes, but the data is in the numbers, guys. So make sure to keep that in mind, and then just like be able to scale in a sense where you can eventually hire people to do it for you and sell for you, because there's like so many different ways. Like it's just like you're still building your business, right? And it's going to take some time to get to that passive stage, but also taking into consideration how much influence you have as well. Because sometimes, like, you've been in the game for some time, and like people know you because you always continuously show up, but it's still something you build over time. And then, like, if you've already accumulated this reputation, then it's so much easier to be able to sell anything afterwards and make it passive too. So yeah.
Great point. Yeah.
Love that. Okay. So, I mean, we dove into a lot of different things today. Um, I'm curious to know where you see the future of passive income and online courses heading, especially in terms of opportunities. Like, give me your take on that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, like, I know based on the numbers, like the number of courses, the number of coaches, the number of people teaching in the online space is just growing and growing exponentially. And I don't see that stopping. As well as there's like other platforms which I'm completely not affiliated with, but like School, for example, SKOOL, and other platforms like that, which are trying to formalize these online courses into more of like a formal online school. So I think not only will courses and coaches grow, but just the way that they're being delivered is going to transform within the next decade. And the best time, now is the time to start something like this for sure if you're trying to get into the online space.
I like that, because especially the point about you saying how like all of these different companies are coming up with it. It's because there's a market for it,
Yeah,
right? There's like, that's why there's always constantly so many different new platforms coming out that allow you to easily build courses. So definitely that's not stopping. Something that's continuously growing. It's just a matter of, you putting in the time at the beginning to create these courses or these passive income opportunities. And then being able to eventually free yourself from constantly being that coach that has to show up one on one and, always like, I guess, like putting away your time, like giving your time away directly to get that money. Like, you want to be able to create different income sources for yourself, but also this is like great ways for your students, for your clients to be able to work with you at different price points as well, right? So that's also something that we need to take into consideration.
totally.
But
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would say like integrating to add on to that, integrating ways to show up in your business. So you're giving
yeah.
your students all of the answers they need, everything that they need, but you're also making sure that you have time for yourself and you know exactly when you're going to show up for them. So, for example, for me, for my students, I have 2 group calls a week, Tuesdays and Fridays at different times. And within those hours, they know that they can access me on the call. If they have any questions, I will send them the answers within those times. And then I know that I'm touching base with them like every couple days, and they're getting the answers they need within a good amount of time. But I don't need to be sitting here answering a bunch of questions at all hours. Not that I don't love them, I love them and I love answering questions, but then it gets very confusing in your life and you're not able to give to yourself or to the people you need. So really, like, having some rigid scheduling and things in place and sticking to that, because it'll benefit you in the long term. Yeah.
Hmm. Great points there. And I know, yeah, it's something that it's you have to build something like this eventually, right? It gives you different accesses of like, I mean, allowing people different accesses to you, because one-on-one is definitely like high ticket coaching and they're getting the most time with you. But then that's why there's also courses, and why it's so important to have courses, because and group coaching programs too, because these are different ways that they have access to you, and that's what they're paying for. And you don't have to always do one-on-one if you don't have the capacity for it, right? It's just a more sustainable way of growing your business, growing your coaching business. And that's also like a very big factor in the idea of passive income and online courses, is like building a business that is actually sustainable for you in the long run as well. So yeah, this was a very like fun topic. I love that you shared so many great insights. I know you have like a lot of things like going on in your world, but please tell the audience something exciting that's coming up for you that you're currently working on right now.
Exciting. I have a lot of exciting things going on. I'm really going full in onto my YouTube channel recently, so you guys can check me out on YouTube. I post there like now twice, 3 times a week consistently. I've been making that a passive tool as well by outsourcing editing and all of that. So I post consistently on there on how to get high paying clients, how to scale, how to make income more passively, just in general. So that's a good place to be, and I'm really excited about that right now. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, definitely check out her channel. I looked at a few of your videos. It's like, I love the way that you teach and the way that you explain things. It's like very like straightforward to the point. It's not like a lot of fluff. Like, I like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely follow Chelsie on YouTube. And where else can they find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me on, well, first of all, just to acknowledge what you said about the no fluff. I take that as a big compliment. Thank you. I went to law school. I graduated law school last year, and I
Wow.
just posted a video on how law school taught me to communicate in a way that was very point first and not a lot of fluff. So it's funny that you that you said that. Yeah, you can find me on all the platforms. Instagram is where I'm most active, so you can definitely find me on there, as well as you can feel free to message me. I have a script for people who are looking to start online courses and start getting high paying clients for their courses. So if you want that, just DM me the word script and I will send that over to you and we can connect on there.
Cool. All right. So I will definitely be linking those resources down in the show notes. So definitely check it out. Check out her script and just watch her on YouTube and follow her on Instagram.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for tuning into our episode today, for being an amazing guest. We really, really hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we had fun recording it and having these awesome conversations. Stay tuned for more episodes to come and make sure to leave us some love, like DM us or like send voice notes. We love to hear your feedback. And thanks for being here today. Tune into the next episode.